Gothamites, I'm London, aka History of the Batman. 2022 marks the 35th anniversary of Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli's 1987 4-issue arc, Batman Year One. While Year One is considered to be one of the greatest interpretations of the Dark Knight's origin story, there are several other stories, including Chip Zdarsky's new limited series Batman the Knight, that have helped define the genesis of Bruce Wayne's transformation into the Batman. So for this video, we are going to highlight some of the best Batman comic book origin stories that you should all check out if you want to learn more about the creation of this Caped Crusader. But before we jump into reliving Bruce Wayne's parents' murders over and over and over again, why don't you subscribe to this channel and become a part of this wonderful Gothamite community. Our first story is the legend of Batman and how he came to be. Bill Finger and Bob Kane's The Batman debuted in 1939's Detective Comics issue 27. 83 years ago, Bill Finger penned the original Batman origin story, and that was published in 1939's Detective Comics issue 33, which over the last 8 decades has become arguably one of the most well-known origin stories in all of fiction. In this classic tale, one night as Dr. Thomas Wayne, his wife Martha, and their young son Bruce were walking home from a night out at the movies, a mugger known as Joe Chill leapt from the shadows of Park Row and assaulted them, demanding money. Thomas tried to fight back, but the mugger shot him directly in the chest, killing him. He then turned his gun on Martha and viciously ended her life as well, with Bruce Wayne staring on in horror. Making a promise by the spirit of his parents, Bruce swears he will avenge their deaths and will spend the rest of his life warring on all criminals, and through the years of training would transform into the vigilante persona of the Batman. Even if you aren't into reading Batman comics, you have seen Batman's origin story, whether on film or in television or in video games. His origin has been done many times in DC media ever since this 1939 debut. And over the decades, from the Golden Age era all the way to the modern era, different creators have penned their own version of this very iconic tale of how one of the greatest DC Comics characters of all time really came to be. And we see this in our next story, The Untold Legend of the Batman. The 1980s began with an already tonal shift in the stories printed in the Batman and Detective Comics publication, with DC Comics moving into this new era with the goal of continuing the Dark Detective rebrand kickstarted by creators in the 1970s such as Steve Englehart, Denny O'Neil, and Len Wein, with Wein at the beginning of this decade penning a 3-issue arc titled The Untold Legend of the Batman that almost acted as a refresher course for fans wanting to know on Bruce Wayne's Batman and how he became the protector of Gotham City. When Bruce sent his father, Thomas Wayne's Bat costume ripped to shreds, him and Dick Grayson's Robin team up to investigate who is truly behind this emotional threat. Along the way, we relive memories such as Bruce's parents' murder, Bruce's vow to avenge his parents' death through training, his time in college, finding his way to the shadow of the Bat as his guise, and the origin of Robin, Alfred Pennyworth, the Joker, and Two-Face. A 3-issue arc filled with self-reflection, Len Wein's The Untold Legend of the Batman is both a testament to the past 40 years of the Caped Crusaders mythos and a solid introduction to the modern era of the 1980s. Our next story is, of course, Batman Year One. After writer Frank Miller's groundbreaking 1986 series, Batman the Dark Knight Returns, a year later, Miller returned to the Batman character, and him, along with artist David Mazzucchelli, created the 4-issue arc Batman Year One, which was originally published in 1987's Batman issue 404 to 407. A modern retelling of Bruce Wayne's journey to becoming the Batman, Year 1 focuses on both Bruce Wayne's return to Gotham City after traveling abroad training for his true destiny, and a young Lieutenant James Gordon moving to Gotham with his pregnant wife Barbara, James learning the hard way about the corrupt police system. Once Bruce tests his readiness to become a vigilante, the foundation of Bill Finger's original origin story remains, showcasing a large bat flying through the window of Bruce's father's study, giving him the inspiration that he shall become a bat, creating the Batman. While Year 1 gives readers a detailed look at the trials and almost clumsiness of Bruce Wayne's Batman in the first weeks of him becoming this vigilante, we also observe the struggling personal relationships between James Gordon, his wife Barbara, his co-worker Sarah Eason, and we get to see Selina Kyle's origin story into becoming the Catwoman. I like that, the Catwoman, or the Cat. That's what she was first called in her debut in 1940's Batman #1. I always think that's pretty cool. Very excited for this new Catwoman and the Batman coming out in March. Like, I'm just so incredibly hyped. The combination of Frank Miller's gritty description of the corrupt Gotham City and David Mazzucchelli's complementary aesthetic and iconic cover art. Batman Year 1, just like the other stories we're covering in this video, are definitely an essential for any Batman fans that want to jump in and start reading Batman comics. The year 1989 in Batman comics expanded on Bruce Wayne's training his mind, body, and spirit to become the Batman of Gotham City. Stories such as Christopher Priest's The Wall and Sam Hamm's Batman Blind Justice showcases Bruce Wayne's skills he would take back with him to Gotham and successfully use into protecting his city. In 1989's Secret Origins of the World's Greatest Superheroes, the late Denny O'Neil not only incorporated these stories, but also adds more depth to Bruce Wayne's background in his early years, which is all seen in the single story, The Man Who Falls. Bruce Wayne's parents, Thomas and Martha, are gunned down. By the age of 14, Bruce begins to travel outside of Gotham City. While attending different schools, none of them ever really inspired him, and he ultimately dropped out. Even when he traveled to Washington, D.C. at the age of 20 and began being trained by the FBI, this didn't satisfy him neither, and he left the program after 6 weeks. This led to him hopping on a plane to Korea, where he was trained by Master Kirigi in the art of ninjutsu for 11 months. After leaving Korea, Bruce travels to France, where he met Henry Ducard, who showed him the uses of brutality, deception, and cunning. Shortly after this training, Bruce falls into the home of an Indian shaman and tells him that he has the mark of the bat. After these events, he travels to Gotham City again, and after a failed attempt at fighting crime, he gets inspiration from a bat flying into his father's study in Wayne Manor. The issue ends with Batman continually focusing on his crusade for the rest of his days. Denny O'Neil's The Man Who Falls isn't just an essential to read to look into Batman's early days, but also if you are a fan of the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy film series, The Man Who Falls was great inspiration for the 2005 film Batman Begins. Our next story is Batman Zero Year. A more modern interpretation of Batman's classic origin story is Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's Batman Zero Year. While Frank Miller's Year 1 is considered the essential modern retelling of Bill Finger's 1939 Batman origin story, Snyder and Capullo's year-long arc, Batman Zero Year, easily becomes a new classic in retrospecting Bruce Wayne's early days as the Dark Knight of Gotham. Part of DC Comics' The New 52 initiative, Scott Snyder's 3-part arc spanned across 2014's Batman issues 21 through 33. Showcasing his complex journey and finding his true identity, the reader follows an inexperienced Bruce Wayne as he tackles Golden Age mythology beautifully written and illustrated in the modern era, from fighting the Red Hood gang to his trials with Dr. Death to the classic challenge of wits with Edward Nygma, aka the Riddler. Zero Year presents a refreshing take on the Batman's beginnings, his infamous rogues gallery, and the continued struggle of handling the dual identity of both the man and the myth. And the latest story that explores Bruce Wayne's origins and transformation into the Batman comes in Chip Zdarsky's 10-issue series, Batman the Knight, which issue 1 was first published this past Tuesday on January 18th. While this story will have many classic elements of Batman's origin, from the death of Thomas and Martha Wayne to even when he travels abroad and he comes across Henry Ducard, which was originally seen in Denny O'Neill's The Man Who Falls, Zdarsky is already presenting a refreshing take on this already classic and almost overly done origin story, with issue number 1 showing an 18-year-old Bruce Wayne who is going to therapy to discuss his guilt and much rage to his new psychiatrist, Dr. Hugo Strange. Already having troubles in school and not necessarily caring about going to university, Bruce Wayne goes from wanting to become a cop to protect the people of Gotham to going and fighting in underground street fights and getting arrested and thrown in jail. The first issue really ends with Bruce deciding that he wants to travel abroad and to really expand how he wants to protect his city of Gotham from criminals like the ones that took away his parents when he was at a young age. I really think Batman the Knight is promising. I think that it's going to be an interesting series that not only shares the classic foundation of what Bill Finger and Bob Kane presented in 1939, but we also will receive new characters and really a new storyline that builds to Bruce Wayne becoming the Dark Knight. From Bill Finger's original origin in 1939 to Zdarsky's brand new story, Batman the Knight, that just started this week, all of these stories in their own way showcases Bruce Wayne's transformation into the DC icon, the Batman, that are all essential reads if you want to dive deep into how this hero truly came to be. Thank you guys so much for watching this video all about the best Batman comic book origin stories. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a bat thumbs up. I know this is my first video in about 4 months and I am terribly sorry. There are many reasons why I wasn't able to put up content on this channel, personal things, whatnot. You don't need to hear them. It's completely fine. But it is a new year and I am very excited to add more content, both just videos like this and also videos for Warner Brothers and DC that I'm gonna start putting up next week. So I'm very excited for that. But if you don't want to miss any of those new videos or any Batman content, why don't you subscribe to this channel and please follow History of the Batman social media, including Instagram at History of the Batman. And I also just made a TikTok. Don't worry, I feel very, very old on there. I actually am starting from 1939 and just going in chronological order because I haven't been able to do that really since 2013 when I started History of the Batman on Instagram. Please go follow on TikTok and Facebook and Twitter and all of those things. I would greatly appreciate any and all support. Also, if you are interested in any of these stories that I discussed in this video, linked in the description below, I will put where you can go shopping and add these classic origins to your personal Batcave collection. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I promise we will have much more History of the Batman soon, right here on YouTube. Remember, Gothamites, all about peace, love, and Batman. Bye.